incident is a typical February 28th incident.
The Tai Ji Men case is like a mirror that completely reflects the problems of the judicial system in Taiwan, as well as the severe problems in taxation.
We still want to emphasize that Tai Ji Men indeed is not a cram school. We would like to commend Tai Ji Men for its contribution to sports and family life education.
The gift from dizi, according to the income tax law and the inheritance and gift tax law, is tax-free. More importantly, the criminal court has made a decision on this, and the giver is responsible for paying taxes rather than the recipient.
The first trial decision on the Tai Ji Men case at the time, the only objective was to honor freedom of religion, belief, and thought in human dignity. I believe that in taxation, we should also honor this. To clarify, the court rulings in the first, second, and third trials indicate that this is a gift, so you should not interpret it as a cram school tuition.
This case is mainly about the fact that they believe these were monetary gifts for their shifu. After 3 trials, the Supreme Court has made its decision. We, as judges, elaborated on the reason why the indictment is not reliable. If the tax agency quoted this indictment as the basis for taxation, I think it is outrageous.
You can visit the Control Yuan's website, where I indicated 7 points for rectification. With each, the National Taxation Bureau simply said, we made a mistake. In 2011, I told the finance minister that this case should be closed. But he didn't attempt to resolve the matter the way he would with his own business. After all, he already got his bonus, and the tax is imposed on someone else anyway.
Through the criminal investigation in the judicial system, it has been confirmed that the money involved is a gift rather than income, so there is no issue of income tax. For the facts confirmed in a criminal court's ruling, the administrative agency have no reason not to adopt them and no reason not to base their decision on them.
Since it is a questionable judgment, the administrative enforcement agency should not enforce it. So why should they enforce it? It is the question of bonuses.
Executing an obviously wrong court judgment and forcibly carrying out an auction for an unjustified tax bill, to be honest, was a crime of dereliction of duty, as collecting a tax with the knowledge that it should not have been collected was a crime under Article 129, Item 1 of the Criminal Code.
The grievance of Tai Ji Men should have been solved 10 years ago. But why is it still unresolved? Because you are the first type of the largest illegal taxation administrative sanctions, is to withdraw it.
The prosecutor brought a fabricated and baseless prosecution. Now the courts have found the defendant not guilty. Not guilty. What does that mean? Means that at the outset, all the tax information provided by the prosecutor was fake. Right, it was all fake.
Between 1966 and 1990, Tai Ji Men had no tax problems. From 1997 to this day, Tai Ji Men has had no tax problems either. Why did you impose taxes on Tai Ji Men only for 1991 to 1996?
分不成，对不对？
可以可以掉头吗？
他实转，他实转，他实转是都分开看。
Regarding the Tai Ji Men case of injustice, over 300 legislators have expressed their voices of justice over the years.
I'd like to use this opportunity to appeal to our government. The government should encourage the transmission of this culture in this area. This culture cannot be broken. Once the culture is broken, our roots will be broken. That's why the lineage of our nation cannot be broken. So I think Tai Ji Men can do such a thing. This is a merit in cultural transmission.
The Tai Ji Men case is straightforward. In 2002, when Control Yuan issued the investigation report, we thought Ministry of Justice would take action, but nothing happened. They all cover up each other.
In 2002, the Supervisory Court investigated the mistakes of prosecutor Ho Kwan-ren in investigating the Tai Ji Men case, and the 8 major crimes were written here in black and white. The Supervisory Court is asking you to investigate and punish such a blatantly illegal act, and you are still bending over backwards to defend him.
The case was heard by over 80 judges, and in the end, Tai Ji Men won the case. Surprisingly, the Taxation Bureau insisted on seizing the property through the Administrative Enforcement Agency of the Ministry of Justice. This resulted from the prosecutor's abuse of power and unlawful prosecution.
There is insufficient evidence for criminal charges. What law did you apply? Why are the tax bills not revoked? What law did you apply? You should correct your mistakes.
The administrative courts, the Control Yuan, and the Petitions and Appeals Committee all made decisions in their favor. They won every single time. Could you please explain, apart from these 3 authorities, what else can they appeal to?
Is it justifiable to brush aside due process, the legal basis for our laws, simply for the purpose of collecting more taxes?
Today, in the Tai Ji Men case, justice is on whose side? The truth is on whose side? It's already very clear. In light of the huge costs of this case to taxation and society, we probably are doing a meaningless thing.
The
Put my microphone back on. So indeed, I have to admit that while at the beginning of the video, when it was talking about this prosecutor saying that in his mind it was very clear that Tai Ji Men were guilty because of the shadows in the eyes, it reminded me of a Spanish case that I had the honor to be working on about 20 years ago. The prosecutor was saying that a specific religious community was guilty of the death of dictator Franco, and that they were responsible of a state push in Morocco. And then the judge of investigation of that case, when was interrogating one of the defendants, he put his hands like this and said, "Please don't look at my eyes," right? And then when a journalist asked this prosecutor, why did he say this? The prosecutor said, yeah, because these people, they come from Venus and they have powers over the people of Earth, right? So it's like the insanity of, of some people that are there to give us justice, and when it's not right, then we can suffer such injustices as the one we are seeing with the Tai Ji Men case. So notes aside, comments aside, we will start by giving the floor to our next speaker. Our next speaker, everyone here probably knows already, and those who are watching us who is the first time following this program, I would tell you that Professor Massimo Introvigne from Rome is an Italian sociologist of religions, and he's the founder and managing director of the Center for Studies on New Religion, CESNUR, which is actually an international network of scholars who study new religious movements and spiritual movements. He has been author to more than 70 books and more than 100 articles in the fields of sociology of religion. He's one of the main authors of Encyclopedia della Religione in Italia, Encyclopedia of Religions in Italy, member of the editorial board for the interdisciplinary journal of research on religion. And anyway, he has, I mean, we could give a whole lecture about what Massimo Intervigni has been doing and keeps doing, right? He has been working at the OSCE also, which is one of the important organizations in Europe to keep peace. And he's one of the leading experts in defending the rights of religious minorities from the focus of making them known, to like putting aside any controversies or going deep into any controversies to clear them up to the main public. So I've had the pleasure to work with him in different issues, and it's really an honor for me to introduce him. Please welcome Mr. Professor Massimo Intervigni. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And it's interesting to observe that this is the second webinar on Tai Ji Men for the World Day of Social Justice. We did one last year, 2021, and I mentioned it in that webinar that social justice is not a Marxist idea, because before the Marxist, it was invented by the Jesuits, and particularly by an Italian Jesuit called Luigi Taparelli d'Azeglio. However, that was in the early 19th century. Social justice is somewhat new, but it was needed because a very old concept dating back to the ancient Greek, distributive justice, no longer worked. For centuries, the West knew what distributive justice was, respecting the law and giving all citizens their due. But because of the Industrial Revolution, there was a small number of super rich people, and they were so rich that they could manipulate the law. And so observing the laws was no longer enough, because the poor people will suffer. But distributive justice remained the core of social justice. And I would like to discuss today, only you will see my finger, but then hopefully you will see some images. I want to discuss what I believe is the most important text of the Middle Ages, and surely Italian text, on distributive justice. And I use the word text because it's not a book. It's a cycle of fresco panels painted by Ambrogio Lorenzetti between 1338 and 39 in the City Hall of Siena in Tuscany. And they are still there. Let's see if I can show you pictures. Here is, are you seeing the picture? Okay. Ivan, are we seeing the picture?
See, we see it.
Good. That's what you see when you enter in the council room of the City Hall. I was there recently. And you see in front of you the just government, the good government. On the left, you have the bad government, the unjust government, and on the right, you have the good fruits of the good government. And I believe these principles are universal, so they resonate with the teachings of Dr. Hong Tao-tzu, the leader of Tai Ji Men, and they, of course, resonate with the teachings of all genuine spiritual masters. Now, Here is a closer look at the good government, and I want to attract your attention first on what is on the left. And what is on the left, it's a representation of justice. Now, what you will note here, you are perhaps accustomed to see the justice blind, but here justice is not blind. In fact, the blind justice only came after 2 centuries, in the 16th century. And originally in Germany, it was to protest against justice not working very well. But when Emperor Charles V, Carlo V in Spanish, who had a genius for propaganda, rather than being criticized, he took this symbol as a positive one, saying, my judges, yes, they are blind because they don't look whether the defendant is rich or poor, from what country it is, they treat everybody equally. That was not exactly true, but that's another matter. But at any rate, here we are in the 14th century, and the justice is not blind. She has a sharp eye, and she looks up. And up there is another lady with the word sapientia, wisdom. So she looks at the wisdom, she assesses exactly what should be done, and then she's ready to look down. And down there is peaceful and happy citizens. Now again, if we move slightly to the right, in the central fresco in Siena, you see the fruit of justice. When justice is respected, you have peace, and that's really the genius of Lorenzetti, with his very peaceful, beautiful woman. It gives the beauty of peace. And then something interesting. Here, it's another panel. It's the panel on the right-hand side of the council hall, and it's a city in peace, a city where the good government produces its good effect. But what I'm specifically wanting to show you here, that's just a detail of this painting. You see a number of ladies dancing. This cycle of frescoes is more complicated than it seems, because it has a frame which has an astrological meaning. So you know in what astronomical or astrological part of the paintings you are. And here you are in the part corresponding to Venus, the goddess of love. So these dancing people are expressing love. And here we are very close to the teachings of Dr. Hong, because when you have, remember, justice, and the government is led by justice, you have peace. And when you have peace, you have love, and the citizens live in love and happiness. But now there is also the left hand part of the whole, and it's, I believe, significant that this part is very much ruined. It seems very symbolic. Of course, it's due to the different humidity of the walls, but the part about the bad government is ruined. And the part about the good government has not been restored. It's perfect, as it was painted yesterday, and it was painted more than 6 centuries ago. But here is the left part. And in this left part, you see the injustice, the tyranny sitting on a throne, and her feet are on a goat. And this goat wants to show when if you are not governed by conscience, we are controlled by our animal impulses. And she also has three figures. You see tyranny or injustice is with the horns. And then up there are arrogance, greed, and vanity. And where is peace here? Yes, there is peace. Look at the lower part. Justice, not peace. Look at the lower part, and you see justice is this blonde woman. She is very sad, and she is a prisoner because in a corrupt government, in a tyranny, the tyrant keeps justice in chain. Now, this is a close-up of tyranny or injustice or corruption. Perhaps Tai Ji Men will say looks a little bit like prosecutor who screaming about the goblins, but what Lorenzetti wanted to show is that while justice is beautiful, injustice is very ugly. And I would add that this cycle of frescoes by Lorenzetti is so famous that many artists have tried to modernize it. For instance, if you go to Seattle, Washington, to the courthouse, one of the most beautiful modernization of Lorenzetti's frescoes has been produced by a contemporary American artist, Caleb Ice Bach. And here you see the bad government that he calls inferni in terra in Italian, hells on earth. And I believe the interpretation is not forced to apply it to the Tai Ji Men case. Not, of course, that any artist had in mind the Tai Ji Men, but these principles are really universal. When justice is not respected, tyranny reigns. When tyranny reigns, officers are dominated. You see in the upper part of this modern painting by all this bad thing, greed, arrogance, pride, war, cruelty, persecution, you name them. And so what can be a better description of the lost youth of the Tai Ji Men dizi and of the attitude of the bureaucrats who persecuted them. So today is World Day of Social Justice, and I want to make a wish. I hope that the COVID pandemic will soon be behind us, and that Dr. Hong and his dizi can visit Italy again. I already met them in Italy some years ago, and can visit Siena, which is one of the most beautiful cities, and perhaps produce a video on this treaty about justice, injustice, and politics in one room, in three paintings, fresco paintings. And perhaps we can do a video all together where Dr. Hong and I and others can comment on this fresco. Because century after century, these symbols have inspired generations of religionist philosophers and politicians. And I hope these paintings will also inspire Tai Ji Men in their struggle to promote conscience and justice and to fight against the lack of conscience and injustice. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Introvigne. It is always a very, how do you say, well-received surprise how you manage to take any subject, any important subject in society, and find these beautifully made comparisons. You've said that originally the blind lady of justice was introduced as a satirical prince. This is for me, is now a discovery, and I think probably for many of us, for which I thank you, because it's always good to know symbols. Symbols are important. You said also that you believe that we have here one of the great masterpieces of the medieval art, the statement of a perennial truth, the same truth that Dr. Hong promotes in his world tours. You say also that tyranny is inspired from above by arrogance, greed, and vanity, and accompanied by cruelty and other vices. And of course, when this is done, as it's happening with the Tai Ji Men case and all its dizi, and all these resources and attention used on having to defend a just behavior, this is, of course, this is not social justice, and it should be finished, right? So thank you. So we will now go to our next speaker. Our next speaker, his name is Dr. Stephen S. Enada. He's an international development consultant and policy analyst, shaping developmental programs through research and problem-solving mechanism. Dr. Stephen is the chairman of Greenland Communication and Media Services, providing rural communities with access to communication and agribusiness opportunities. Dr. Stephen, currently a Baptist pastor based in Georgia, Jonesboro, USA, he's also president and co-founder of the International Committee on Nigeria, ICON, a North America-based nonprofit organization that advocates for religious freedom and human rights of victims of terrorism and social hostility in Nigeria and the Sahel. Dr. Stephen is alum of U.S. State Department Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, where he has been promoting mutual understanding on religious freedom and other social initiatives within communities in Africa. I mean, Africa is probably where the next great civilization is coming from. Stephen obtained executive education in leadership and finance from Harvard Graduate School of Design, and he's also a fellow of Equator Peace Academy of Uganda, Marte University on post-conflict stabilization, and he holds an MA degree on global leadership from Fuller School of International Studies in California, USA. Please help me give a very nice welcome to Dr. Stephen. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you for the introduction. Appreciate. And also, Mazimo, thank you for bringing me to this important forum to discuss issues of social justice in respect to the Tai Ji Men. What I would like to say today is what can be done to keep these issues on the front burner, not just on the front burner, but to bring it closer to international policy makers, how we can see that justice is finally delivered for the Tai Ji Men. And on that note, I would like to, you see, I've been involved in global campaign for justice for those whose rights are abused, especially from the global community. I have advocated for the Myanmar Kachin Christians in the past. And anytime I think about social justice and in respect to social hostilities that many entities are experiencing globally, I've just discovered that we have not been able to harness all our important sectors, individuals, organizations, associations around this issue mutually. Sometimes we pursue it individually and we don't find cohesion. So why it is important for global collaboration for justice for the Tai Ji Men also applies to me now, having understood the persecution the Tai Ji Men face in Taiwan. I have come to add my voice to the plight of Tai Ji Men and to pursue their cause along with other causes, especially in Washington policy space. Now, as we converge to examine cases of human rights violations within the advocacy space, the best thing that can be done to bring justice in the case of the Tai Ji Men is to inform other stakeholders about the Taiwan government persecution of Tai Ji Men. Imagine justice was delivered, that they were not guilty of tax evasion, and up to date, they are still not being given that justice. This is egregious. This is uncalled for. This is unacceptable. And now, if I am talking henceforth, especially in Washington, D.C., it is important to add the Tai Ji Men issue and case, because without that, especially we have hundreds and hundreds of advocacy organizations, social activists based in the United States, and most of them are concerned about what is going on around the world. So now, where are those issues of the Tai Ji Men? I would want to see henceforth, as I share the concern of Tai Ji Men with other friends, I would like to see how we will begin to bring this to the fore of those who can actually cause some change. So to make this global campaign effective and to force the Taiwan government to respect Tai Ji Men human rights, it is important we begin to ask US Congress through the relevant committees to begin to review the United States security partnership with Taiwan. And this makes Taiwan a rare case where Washington has a security partnership with an entity with which it does not have diplomatic relations. This is where we can force Taiwan to stop the persecution of the Tai Ji Men. And this is very simple. All we need to do now, even as regards to this group, we just write a letter to special committees in the Congress, in the Senate, and begin to say, this is what is happening, and we begin to make sure we call for such meetings. I tell you, the Taiwan government will not want that to happen, but we can do that. And that is how we can now begin to sign letters together. We'll begin to release even press from our own end, so that we'll be able to include Tai Ji Men case in our advocacy discussion in Washington, D.C., and even other United Nations Security Human Rights Council. So you see, this is why it is important. Taiwan exported last year over 347 billion worth of goods around the globe. But we also have businessmen and women who are trading. And what we usually do also to make even our campaign effective for the cause of the Tai Ji Men is for us to begin to engage the businessmen and women that look at human rights violations in Taiwan, and as a result, you have to speak to that. They don't want, especially businessmen and women, to understand some human rights violations happening. So many governments try to cover even their atrocities so that business organizations and also government will not understand that. So this is what I'm saying. I'm committed to include Tai Ji Men as important human rights discussion in Washington, D.C. in our campaign, and we also advise coalition partners to include Tai Ji Men on this issue. And I'll be coming back to us here to ask for further information, and also to even call for many of us here to speak on behalf of the Tai Ji Men in this arena. Yes, I know we are doing something, but we will need to force the hand of Taiwan government to deliver justice to the Tai Ji Men, and this has to be cohesive, and this has to be comprehensive. Thanks to Dr. Mazimo Introvine for introducing me to the Tai Ji Men cause. We are in this together until justice is served or given to Tai Ji Men. So I have to take this time out, even though I'll have to prepare for my church service here. It is morning here, but this is very important, and I'll still have some few minutes to remain here so that we discuss these important issues as we talk about the World Day of Social Justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Renata. Thank you for your kind words of support and understanding, and the suggestions on how we should work together in support of solving this cause, and how the political spheres should be approached in Washington to really take care of this. And we all together can help continue to bring it to their attention. I think it's a very good thing that we must do, because injustice for one is injustice for all. So next, we're going to have our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Deborah Cavallo. Deborah Cavallo she's a jurist and member of the board of directors of Fede Insieme, which means Faith Together, which was formed in 2021. And then basically it's a very young, active committee in Italy in promoting intercultural and interreligious dialogue. And I would like to commend the creation, the forming of such a committee, because we all know that it takes people with heart to start activities, especially when there are so many things, so many distractions in this society, so many things to fight for, and that you and Fede Insieme have chosen to fight for faith together, and it's very commendable. So I would like to now please give you the floor, Mrs. Deborah Cavallo.
Buonasera a tutti, grazie per l'introduzione e ringrazio il CESNUR e Human Rights Without Frontiers per l'invito a partecipare anche a questo grande e importante incontro online. E prima di cominciare con il mio intervento, appunto, mi presento. Sono la dottoressa Deborah Cavallo, giurista e membro attivo di Fede Insieme, che è un comitato fondato appunto dall'avvocato Francesco Curto, e con il fine di favorire il dialogo interculturale e interreligioso. E ho preso conoscenza proprio della vicenda del movimento di Tai Ji Men e del suo stimato fondatore, il dottor Hong, proprio dall'avvocato Francesco Curto, il quale ha avuto anche modo appunto di spiegarmi l'attività svolta dal movimento e anche ovviamente di illustrarmi la casistica giuridica e analizzare alcuni documenti.
So I will translate into English. First, Dr. Cavallo introduced herself as a jurist and a member of the Faith Together, in Italian Fede Insieme committee, which was founded by attorney Francesco Curto, whom we had in another webinar. And it was the same Francesco Curto who introduced Deborah to Tai Ji Men, both to the activities of Tai Ji Men and his respected founder, Dr. Hong, and to the problems and the legal case of Tai Ji Men. And as a jurist, she has studied several documents about Tai Ji Men case.
E continuo con dire che il lavoro di Tai Ji Men, appunto, di condivisione dei valori, dei principi della cultura di pace nel mondo, mi ha colpito molto ed è sicuramente molto importante e preziosa. E promuovere poi, appunto, come fa Tai Ji Men, il valore del buon cittadino, ritengo anche che sia molto ammirevole per la crescita e lo sviluppo virtuoso anche della società moderna. E le società moderne hanno bisogno infatti di individuare dei punti molto saldi di riferimento, ossia anche degli esempi di virtù, e l'operato di Tai Ji Men non deve infatti cessare, anzi deve continuare con una piena consapevolezza circa il ruolo importante che ha nella società.
So I was deeply moved by Tai Ji Men's work of sharing the values and principles of a culture of peace and love in the world, and I find this work precious and valuable. And in particular, also the work of promoting the idea of the world citizens and the good citizens, because this really may foster the virtuous growth and the development of modern societies. And modern societies need to identify solid points of reference and examples of virtue. And this is why Tai Ji Men's work should not cease, and I urge them to continue it with an awareness of how precious their social role is.
E l'obiettivo di Tai Ji Men e del dottor Hong sono degli obiettivi appunto di tutto rispetto e anche molto ambiziosi, come abbiamo visto purtroppo anche non privo di ostacoli. Infatti anche ovviamente altri relatori in precedenza ne hanno parlato, e infatti anche le questioni giudiziarie del dottor Hong e del movimento Tai Ji Men ne sono un esempio, vicende giudiziarie che approfondiremo anche nel merito, e non posso in realtà fare altro che richiamare anche quanto detto già dal collega Francesco Curto, ed è evidente infatti come tali vicende presentino delle violazioni ai principi giuridici fondamentali dell'uguaglianza, ossia lo stesso trattamento anche fiscale al verificarsi delle stesse condizioni e circostanze, e della coerenza, quindi della non tolleranza all'interno dell'ordinamento giuridico di contraddizioni tra patti, atti e norme.
So we know that people like Dr. Hong and Tai Ji Men, who have honorable and global goals, often have enemies and meet with obstacles. And Dr. Cavallo says she looked at the other webinars, and more or less all the legal experts agree on the problems in the case of Tai Ji Men. And in particular, she refers to a speech given in one of our webinars by attorney Francesco Curto, who organized the violations of law and legal principles in the Tai Ji Men case under two headings. A violation of the principle of equality, which says that equal circumstances should be treated in an equal way, including in the tax field, and the violation of the principle of consistency, which says that in a legal system, parts, acts, and rules should be treated in a consistent way.
E entrando nel merito della vicenda anche con l'avvocato Francesco Curto, ci è risultato veramente molto paradossale come, ad eccezione dell'anno del 1992, dal 1991 al 1996 il denaro versato al movimento, secondo il classico rito antico delle buste rosse, sia stato considerato una donazione, quindi soggetto a un certo regime fiscale, mentre invece nel 1992, e si intende solo per quest'anno, le somme versate rispettano lo stesso rito, siano considerate in diverso modo e perciò soggetto anche a diverso regime, e qui è chiaramente evidente una grande diseguaglianza. Ciò pare sia giustificato appunto dall'inoppugnabilità di una sentenza emessa nel 2006 dalla Suprema Corte Amministrativa riguardante appunto i versamenti del solo anno del 1992, che però appunto è stata in realtà contraddetta da altri provvedimenti giudiziari, e di qua infatti si denota il contrasto, emanati appunto successivamente. E occorre sicuramente un intervento delle istituzioni per porre rimedio a questi contrasti, a queste distorsioni del sistema. Occorre quindi giustizia, ossia l'applicazione di quel principio principio che garantisce la possibilità di instaurare qualsiasi forma di coesistenza sociale e che in quanto tale coincide con il diritto, sia con l'insieme di pratiche sociali giuste e capaci di promuovere appunto la coesistenza, garantendo la simmetria tra le parti sociali.
Let me now enter into the merit of the case, which I discussed with Francesco Curto. Now, it seems to me that the core problem is that the money offered by the disciples to their master for all the years between 91 and 96, except 92, was regarded as a gift and as such not taxable. When disciples give red envelopes to a master, they participate in a ritual, and a very ancient one. But for 1992, and only for 1992, the money in the red envelopes was considered differently as tuition fee and taxed as such, and the inequality was obvious. Now they justified it by the fact that a decision of the Supreme Administrative Court issued in 2006 and concerning the fiscal year 92 was final. However, this decision was contradicted by other judicial decisions issued subsequently, which declared that the content of the red envelopes should be declared as gift and not taxed. And we see here the contrast. Either these are gifts or they are taxable tuition fees, and they cannot be both or alternate between the years. So Taiwan's institutions should now intervene and correct the contradiction that caused a distortion of the system. We need justice to guarantee a peaceful social coexistence, and justice corresponds to the fair application of the laws and consists of the set of just social practices that give to everybody their due.
E torno a dire che abbiamo la fortuna anche di vivere in un'epoca di società democratiche in cui i cittadini hanno spesso la possibilità di promuovere le proprie opinioni in merito a varie tematiche, e vorrei quindi tornare anche all'intervento precedente, in realtà di uno degli incontri precedenti del dottor Capra, incentrato sulle varie forme di partecipazione, ad esempio anche sull'impegno politico, sindacale, oppure con la protesta pacifica, ma vorrei anche aggiungere che ci sono in realtà nuove forme anche di partecipazione e di sensibilizzazione all'opinione pubblica, ed entrando proprio in Fedi Insieme ho appreso diverse forme di partecipazione, anche forme utili a sensibilizzare l'opinione pubblica, e ad esempio per sensibilizzare appunto i cittadini sul problema legato alla nascita, alla diffusione anche di fondamentalismi religiosi. Abbiamo pensato, e in realtà stiamo ancora organizzando, una maratona, ossia una corsa organizzata in tutta la città di Torino, in cui le persone sono invitate a partecipare manifestando per il loro gesto atletico contro i fondamentalismi religiosi, per poi appunto concludere l'iniziativa con una tavola rotonda sul tema.
So we are fortunate to have democracy and citizens who can express their opinions freely and publicly. And I would like to come back to another of the previous webinar speeches I listened to, and that's Dr. Capra in the last webinar. He's also with Fedi Insieme. And Capra discussed the principle of participation, which allows citizens to participate in social life through political commitment, the work of trade unions, and peaceful protest. But I would like to add something, that there are also new forms of participation and of explaining issues and problems to the public opinion. And when I joined the Fedi Insieme, I learned about new and ingenious ways to promote the awareness of certain issues among the general public. For example, to call the attention of the citizens on the dangers of religious fundamentalists, we plan to organize a marathon, and we are currently organizing it. This is a race throughout the city of Turin, and citizens will be invited to participate and testify against the dangers of fundamentalism, not with words, but through an athletic gesture. And in the end, they will sit and listen to a round table on this theme.
E le questioni giudiziarie del movimento Tai Ji Men e del dottor Hong e i paradossi che ne sono emersi, come già abbiamo detto, con la violazione del principio di uguaglianza, del principio della coerenza dell'ordinamento giuridico, pongono tutti noi comunque nella condizione di dover ragionare e riflettere su questi strumenti di partecipazione e anche sulla loro importanza e diffusione, come questi possano anche rendere giustizia portando a riforme legislative. E continuo a condividere col fatto che sensibilizzare l'opinione pubblica su questi aspetti è molto importante e ritengo anche che gli amici del Tai Ji Men potrebbero prendere in considerazione e in esame anche iniziative diverse per la sensibilizzazione dell'opinione pubblica, come infatti facciamo con Fede Insieme.
Yeah, the case of Tai Ji Men and Dr. Hong, with its obvious violations of the principles of equality and of the coherence and non-contradiction of the legal system, led me, and perhaps should lead all of us, to reflect on this issue, the tools of participation. What new tools may be useful to raise awareness of this important case? What tools will promote legal and tax reform? And perhaps our friends of Tai Ji Men should also consider new tools of communication, as we try to do in Fede Insieme.
E ovviamente concludo dicendo che l'azione fiscale contro il dottor Hong e Tai Ji Men non avrebbe ovviamente mai dovuto essere iniziata e comunque dovrebbe essere stata già risolta da diversi anni. Questo purtroppo non è stato e il buon cittadino può pacificamente, come detto, attivarsi nelle forme di partecipazione al fine di comprendere l'opinione pubblica, la questione e le problematiche conseguenti dal preteso errore. E fa bene ovviamente Tai Ji Men a valorizzare la figura del buon cittadino coscienzioso, rispettoso delle istituzioni e delle norme, ma anche appunto determinato nel saper come tutelare i propri diritti nei modi pacifici e più nobili che gli sono consueti. E mi auguro di potervi incontrare di persona al più presto e vi auguro un buon proseguimento dei lavori e vi ringrazio ovviamente per l'attenzione.
Tai Ji Men tax case should never have existed in the first place, and after it existed, it should have been solved long ago. Since it is not so, good citizens are entitled to protest and seek rectification of the injustice, and perhaps they may add new ways of raising awareness of the case. Tai Ji Men will do good to keep promoting the ideal of the good citizens as women and men of conscience, respectful of the institutions and the rules, but at the same time determined to protect their rights and knowing how to do it in a dignified and peaceful way. So I thank you for your attention. I hope to be able to meet most of you in person soon, and I wish you a fruitful continuation of this work.
Grazie mille, dottoressa Cavallo, è stato un intervento bellissimo, penso che è arrivato bene. Thank you very much, Dr. Cavallo. It was a beautiful intervention. I'm going to try to highlight a few of the points that you have mentioned from the notes that I took. So you have said that the injustice vested on Tai Ji Men is obvious and that new tools are needed to raise awareness of it in Taiwan, but also internationally. Then you also stress the inconsistency of some years being treated as a gift and some others, another one as a tuition. And so, of course, it's either a tuition or not. It's either a gift or it's not. It cannot be depending of the year. The astrology does not decide justice anymore, as it used to do thousands of years ago. So Taiwan's proper institutions, you said, should intervene and correct the contradiction that caused the distortion of this system, and also that the case should have never existed. And since it exists, of course, you urge the Tai Ji Men to continue with the practice of being good citizens. Of course, we have to always abide by the law, but this does not mean that we cannot protest. In fact, we are in a democracy and we should protest when injustices are happening. So thank you again for your presentation. And now it is my honor to introduce the last speaker of this first section. This is Mr. Willy Fautré. I've had the honor to work with him on different human rights issues. Willy Fautré is former chargé de mission of the cabinet of the Belgian Ministry of Education and at the Belgian Parliament. He's the director of Human Rights Without Frontiers International, which is an NGO based in Brussels, in the capital of Europe, that he founded in 1988. His organization defends human rights in general, but also the rights of persons belonging to historical religions, non-traditional and new religious movements. It is apolitical and independent from any religion. He has carried out fact-finding missions on human rights and religious freedom in more than 25 countries, has been a lecturer in universities in the field of religious freedom and human rights, has published many articles in university journals about relations between state and religions, and he often organizes conferences that I've had the honor to participate at the European Parliament, including on freedom of religion and belief in China. For years, he has developed religious freedom advocacy in European institutions at the OSCE and at the UN. And I can personally tell you that when Human Rights Without Frontiers speaks, when Willy Fautré speaks in Brussels, you are being heard. So the floor is yours, Mr. Fautré.
Thank you very much for this introduction. And in fact, we're now going to start with the usual second session of the webinar that is open to followers of Dr. Hong. But before they share with us their experience with Tai Ji Men, we will watch a second video titled Voice of Justice, which is appropriate for this special day on social justice.
The judicial system has cleared their names and has made a ruling. Why do the administrative agencies still go against the court's ruling? We request that the administrative agency follow the law and take action in accordance with the court's ruling.
In the criminal and legislative aspects, Tai Ji Men has been declared innocent of all charges. Tai Ji Men has won the case. As for the National Taxation Bureau in the executive yuan system, our appeal has been heard in the Supreme Court. The final decision of the 3 court trials confirmed Tai Ji Men innocent. At the National Taxation Bureau, within the Ministry of Finance's appeal system, Tai Ji Men once again won the case. Even the control yuan decided that Tai Ji Men is innocent. I can't think of any ways after numerous legislators have inquired regarding this case. I can't think of any other course of action in our country's legal system can be taken to solve the case. I really don't know what is going on. Is it how our country's legal system is designed?
This case has been dragged for more than 10 years and is unable to be resolved. The administrative agencies have to take full responsibility, while the administrative agencies exercise administrative discretion. They have to ensure that people's human rights on taxation are protected, which is the most important spirit and objective.
If the Tai Ji Men case cannot be resolved, taxation human rights do not exist. So many people. If so many people have appealed yet this grievance still cannot be rectified, then there's no human rights at all.
We have talked about this case many times in the Finance Committee of the Legislative Yuan, and it is unbelievable. Although this case is a belated justice, it should be closed soon. Today, many committee members have come here to care. So I hope to ask the Ministry of Finance to use this case, so as not to cause social unrest because of a specific prosecutor, or because of abuse of power by one person.
I know this issue has wasted too much time and resource. This is very serious, and it has shaken the 5 branches of government and the foundation of the nation.
We request the Ministry of Finance to complete this case in 2 months. What to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Don't delay anymore.
Let the NTB of the Central Area submit the report to the Ministry of Finance. It's the NTB of the Central Area. It's not good to let them take full responsibility. Just report to the Ministry. This is all I will say. Okay, we'll do as the Deputy Minister says. We'll send our official report to the Ministry of Finance. Just now we said to dismiss, to revoke it. Okay, the Taxation Bureau of the Central Area will report to the Ministry of Finance.
After the public hearing, the Minister of Finance issues an official letter to Legislator Tian in July 22, 2010, and sent it to the Office of Legislator Tu Xingzhe as well, and then sent it to Legislator Justin Chiu on the 30th. He stated clearly that they had asked the NTB of the Central Area to revoke the tax bill in accordance with the Article 40 of the Tax Collection Act.
We demanded the Taxation Bureau to revoke its illegal tax bills. You just ignored us. Do you think you're above us? You ignore the court, the control yuan, and even the legislative yuan. You really think you're above everyone else.
The criminal case has spent 10 years and 7 months. The judgment of all 3 trials found Tai Ji Men not guilty. The court judgment clearly stated that there was no fraud, no tax evasion, and no violation of Tax Collection Act. NTB still continues to issue tax bills. What on earth is wrong with it? Our taxpayers' rights are almost non-existent. The case has been ruled not guilty by the court, the control yuan, and the Supreme Administrative Court, but you keep patient them with the same tax bills.
I think the court has already made a judgment, and the supervisory yuan has dealt with it, so the National Taxation Bureau cannot use such a method. President Tsai's judicial reform is very important, but tax system reform is more important. The new government has just taken over, and there are a lot of things to be done, and a lot of things to deal with, but tax reform must be at the top of the list, and it should be listed as a part of transitional justice.
The current president announced that no citizen should encounter state violence anymore.
We need to be outraged if the case is not settled properly.
Many legislators from different parties are all expressing their concerns about this case.
It was not until the Tai Ji Men case did injustices over taxpayers' rights start to come to prominence. So we must in fact thank Tai Ji Men.
How come this ongoing case of injustice hasn't been resolved? Is there justice in the nation? In the government?
In the Legislative Yuan, especially in the Finance Committee, we've heard many petitions from the citizens, but we've never heard anything as absurd as what Tai Ji Men experienced. As ordinary citizens, the gifts they gave and the claims they made were reasonable and lawful. Their claims, which have been approved by the courts, are trampled. This is unacceptable.
The Tai Ji Men tax case was initiated by you. It has dragged on for 18 years and hasn't settled yet. Why is that? If the Tax Bureau were right, if the Ministry of Finance were right, why would it end after 18 years?
I would like to report to you that
if the Taxation Bureau is wrong, then you should quickly terminate the case. One time, in order to enforce a compulsory execution, a released official document was clearly backdated using correction fluid. It was backdated to allow you to enforce a compulsory execution. Why are there such tax officers? Why are there such tax agencies? The government has pestered the people for 18 years. The case is still not settled. Clearly, there is something wrong with the government. Either it is not capable or there is something wrong with its mindset.
Then we should surrender and stop, right?
You are just being unreasonable, so you would make such senseless remarks.
Regarding the taxation issue that Tai Ji Men has been litigating for many years, we think that this year, on July 26, 2018, the Supreme Administrative Court has already made a judgment such as 107 Judgment Number 422. It has been clearly revealed that the National Taxation Bureau provided some wrong information to the administrative courts at all levels, and the Supreme Court ruling has stated that what the Tai Ji Men dizi gave to shifu was a gift, not a tuition.
Regarding Tai Ji Men tax dispute, it's been a long journey. I have participated in many parts of it. Of course, it is time to have the case settled.
This tax bill is more than 20 years old, and I have held several public hearings in the legislative yuan. I believe that as long as there are so many people's voices, and so much righteousness together, we can definitely achieve the goal of vindication.
National Taxation Bureau can quickly use the previous cases from 1993 to 1996 to present the 1992 case to Minister Su to make a dismissal. I think he can do it. He also must have such a responsibility. I sincerely hope that Minister Su, you will dismiss this case yourself and take up the responsibility of 24 years.
From 1991 to 1996, the 6-year period. There have been 5 years, there is no problem for 5 years, and there is no taxation. Only the 1992 one caused problems. Why there are two completely different results for the same thing, then obviously there are some problems in it.
For the past 35 years since its founding, your esteemed organization has upheld its objectives of loyalty, filial piety, love of the country, and love of society, uniting like-minded people to promote martial arts, traditional culture, and good social values. It's admirable.
Tai Ji Men is an ancient menpai of Qigong and martial arts, passed down from generation to generation. It's like a big family. All dizi are energetic and healthy physically and mentally. Under Zhang Menzhen's leadership, the dizi not only practice self-cultivation, but also spread kindness to help the world. Through international culture exchanges, they foster love for the world, promoting the idea of love and peace worldwide. On behalf of the government, I would like to take this opportunity to extend my utmost respect and gratitude to you once again. Thank you for your long-term efforts and contributions to our country and society.
Every time we see Tai Ji Men, we see energy, warmth, and love. We all admire Dr. Hong's compassion and would like to see Tai Ji Men practice this worldwide. Let Taiwan stand out and let the world come in.
Under the Zhang Menren's leadership, Tai Ji Men has actively participated in international events, conducted citizen diplomacy, and raised Taiwan's global visibility. In the future, I also hope that Tai Ji Men under Dr. Hong's leadership will continue to work with the government. Let us use our positive influence and move Taiwan forward with continued progress. Let the world see Taiwan.
The criminal trial decision has proved Tai Ji Men's innocence. The government has awarded the defendants compensation for unlawful imprisonment. The control yuan even recognized this as a landmark case of human rights violation. Incumbent and former presidents of our country, heads of government agencies, legislators, and scholars and experts at home and abroad have not only praised Tai Ji Men for its contribution to society, but also expressed their voices of justice over the Tai Ji Men case. The Taxation Bureau should immediately revoke the unjustified tax bills, terminate the case of injustice, and clear the people's names.
Thank you very much for sharing this video with us. And now our first speaker will be Peter Lin, Senior Manager of Software and Advanced Technology Department. He titled his testimony, "Honesty is the Best Policy," a word of Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding members of the United States who drafted and signed the US Declaration of Independence.
Okay, thank you, Willie. I'm Peter. I lead a multinational R&D team for software and advanced technology. I began Tai Ji Men dizi in 1994. My shifu Dr. Hong told me daily self-reflection to be better, to become a better me. The idea of facing challenges with a positive mindset has deeply rooted in my heart. More than 10 years ago, I was in charge of a German company electronic product OEM case. During the design review, a German supervisor asked our engineer one question: "How do you design this hardware?" And our engineer said, "It's my experience." And the German supervisor said very seriously, "Hardware design is a science, which needs formula calculation firstly and then verified in the laboratory. How can you reply it's your own experience without any test?" I immediately admit our mistake and apologize to German supervisor and promised to provide him a complete report with a week. In the second design review, although the supervisor still finds some minor problem, he realized our hard work and sincerity. He joined us to solve the problem. This made me realize the most efficient way is to face a problem bravely and deal with it in time. Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States who drafted and signed the United States Declaration of Independence, said, "Honesty is the best policy. With dishonesty, people will spend more time to cover the fact, leading to inefficient. Even worse, the outcome may become injustice." The concept of integrity and honesty lies the foundation for the future strength of the United States. Tai Ji Men case oriented from prosecutor Ho Kwan Ren's abusing authority and illegal prosecution in 1996, when I was a university student. Prosecutor Ho transferred this case to National Tax Bureau, who then issued the tax bill for 1991 to 1996 based on the indictment without any due diligence. In investigating this case, Prosecutor Ho did not spend much resource on the actual investigation, but he did spend time to smell Tai Ji Men, writing goblin, and also say we are the evil regular religious movement through the media. My classmate and my colleague took this case as a joke and laughed at me. I know I had, no matter how much facts I explain to them, they will still believe what the media reports. I can only praise the good I learned from Tai Ji Men in life to show them the media report were wrong. In my workplace, I took the initiative to undertake difficult job and bravely face all kinds of challenges. After years of hard work, I was recognized by top manager to handle multinational R&D department. Afterward, I have followed my shifu to promote love and peace and participating in international cultural events. I also went to the tree to fight to the justice and my human rights. In the past 26 years, Taiwan Control Yuan found a major violation of prosecutor hold in 2002 and asked Ministry of Justice to take disciplinary action on prosecutor hold. In 2007, Control Yuan found 7 major violations of NTB. On July 13, 2007, the Taiwan Supreme Court found Tai Ji Men innocent of tax evasion and all the other charges. But NTB disregarded the court decision and continued issuing the tax bills. The Tai Ji Men Diz and many scholars have brought protests on the tree and petitioned more than 1,000 times. I am pretty upset. No matter how much effort we were made, how much evidence we were presented, we are unable to undo the outcome that Tai Ji Men's land was illegal action of by administrative enforcement agency and confiscated by the government on August 21st, 2020. Over the years, National Taxation Bureau and Ministries of Justice spend huge amount of resources and public funds to grasp up their mistake and bully the people. Thousands of innocent people have spent 26 years, including me, but still fail to obtain justice and the protection of human rights they deserve. Taiwan government has been committed to develop high-end technology industry for many years. To research and develop a new technology, enterprise need to invest a lot of money, talent in the long term. Government need to have a long-term strategy, and all departments of government need to work together to have a comprehensive and clear policy to support enterprise to seize market opportunity. The tax policy plays an important role and cannot be measured by short-term interest. Otherwise, tax policy will stifle the development of emerging industries. Dr. Ye Yangchun is a biotechnology expert working in the United States. In 2000, Dr. Ye responded to the call of Taiwan Ministry of Economic Affairs. He brought DNA chip technology from the United States and joined a Taiwanese company. In order to reward outstanding talent, the Ministry of Economic Affairs agreed and approved his stock plan, so-called technology stocks. National Taxation Bureau and Ministry of Economic Affairs have different recognition of his stock plan. NTB consider it as a salary income and issue a tax bill of 4 million Taiwan dollars. Dr. Ye suffered 10 years to deal with different departments of government until Control Yuan investigated the case. NTB finally withdrew the bill in 2012. He also be restricted to leave Taiwan, so he could not return to United States to unite his family and got divorced at the end. Taiwan lost biotechnology talent, and Dr. Ye lost his family. It's a lose-lose result. How can the emerging industry survive in Taiwan if various government departments do not take initiative to resolve conflicting policies? The case of Tai Ji Men and Dr. Ye is not a single incident. There are many similar cases happening in Taiwan. 26 years is a long journey in the life. When you have a right mindset in the beginning, you can foresee the good result in the future. As my shifu told me, conscience is the guidance of your heart and lead you to be a better one. I have practiced this mindset in my life and got good achievement in my work. If Taiwan government did not waste the resource and to gloss up their mistake, but use it to help people, the democracy and economy of Taiwan will be better. The goal of World Day of Social Justice is to bring social welfare and social justice to everyone. The United Nations General Assembly recognized that social development and social justice cannot be attained in the absence of respect for all human rights and fundamental freedoms. The only way to achieve social justice and sustainable development is for the government to face the wrong policies with honesty and conscience, and to implement transitional justice. I hereby call on Taiwan government to solve the 26-year-long Tai Ji Men unjust case, as Benjamin Franklin mentioned in the item A of his certain virtues: justice, wrong known by doing injuries, or omitting the benefit that are your duty. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for your presentation and for sharing with us the dramatic story of Dr. Ye, a brilliant scientist and another victim of the National Taxation Bureau, which destroyed his professional career and also his family. And as you said, the only way to achieve social justice and sustainable development is indeed for the government to face its wrong policies with honesty and conscious, and to implement transitional justice. Thank you for your contribution. And now we will listen to the testimony of Robin Liang, a firefighter. But as you know, incidents that need the intervention of firefighters are unpredictable, and she will not be online physically, I would say, but she prepared a video to share a testimony and especially to explain us how a person of words that she was and of non-action as she was could become a person of action thanks to the teachings of Tai Ji Men. Now the video.
Hello everyone. It's an honor to have the opportunity to respond to the World Social Justice Day. I'm Robin, and I'm a firefighter. I used to be a person of words but no action. Because of lacking self-confidence, I always felt that others should do better than me. When expectations are not met, I would easily lose my temper. My shifu, the head of Tai Ji Men, Dr. Hong, taught me how to be a better person and encouraged me to spread love by doing good deeds. I became more confident and reliable as I tried to take on more responsibility without expecting anything in return. I still remember that in 2009, Typhoon Morocco hit Taiwan with torrential rain. Landslides wiped out the village of the Shaolin tribe in Kaohsiung, and nearly 500 people were buried alive. After witnessing this disaster, I don't want to be just an audience, sitting in front of the TV watching people suffer. This is what my shifu taught me, to listen to my conscience calling, and motivated me to become a firefighter. I put an awful lot of work to pass the exams and go through the rigorous training. So then I have the chance to participate the rescue and potentially save some lives. I was involved in a huge explosion caused by an underground propellant leak in downtown Kaohsiung City in 2014, which killed 32 and injured 321. Roads were burst open, and people, automobiles, and everything else were blown away. The scene was dreadful, as if it were a battlefield. It made me realize that when a few people neglect their duties, it can lead to a disaster of great death and injury. But what is more terrifying than this is the illegal abuse of power by a few officials, which causes suffering to the people because the persecutor is the government. And the people may run out of energy and still have no way to complain and are trapped in an abyss. We can apply for bonuses because of our efforts in disaster relief and rescue cases. But it is inevitable that some people overstate their work in order to receive additional bonuses. After participating in the tax reform, I found that tax officials might be billing arbitrarily and executive officers might be overbidding in order to receive more incentive payment. I began to think about the legitimacy of incentive payments and their impact on our work ethic. I realized that tax and enforcement incentives are the source of tax injustice, because greed is the root of all evils. How can a civil servant sitting on a dead-end salary resist the temptation of additional bonuses? The public service is good at boosting morale with incentives, but it has become the source of greed and cruelty to the people. Only by abolishing the bonus system can civil servants be committed to their duties, implement the administration according to law, and put an end to corruption. Willie Faucher, co-founder and director of Human Rights Without Frontier International, pointed out in an international forum that the key to the Tai Ji Men case is the reward system, which not only creates conflicts of interest, but also leads to fabricated tax evasion cases. It is a pyramid scheme of abuse of power for personal gain, with officials at all levels enriching themselves. The beneficiaries of this corrupt system are the Ministry of Finance, the National Taxation Bureau, and the executive branch. However, this system of incentive payment is the product of the martial law period and has no legal basis, but is budgeted for every year, and there are no sanctions and penalties for issuing the wrong tax bill. My shifu told us to love our country, love the world, and love all beings. In spite of being persecuted by the government, Tai Ji Men still managed to travel to 101 countries, self-financed, willing to spread the message of love and peace all around, and advocated for social justice at the same time. I remember President Mama of Kiribati, who rang the peace bell in 2016, once said, "Ringing the bell is a message to the world about the importance and fundamentals of love and peace. We cannot do it alone. It's a shared responsibility." And we are glad that we did find a lot like-minded friends with whom to collaborate to create a conscious culture, to promote the idea of love and peace, to give people the opportunity to look inside themselves and inspire themselves to do what is good for the planet. So I appreciate everyone from around the world who has spoken up in support of human rights and justice. My shifu told us to tell right from wrong, truth from false, and to be a practitioner, to identify and correct weaknesses. So I stopped dreaming and started acting. I learned to write articles to inform more people about the truth, and I tried to speak the truth out loud so our voices to be heard. We hope that some of our government leaders would eventually listen to their conscience and have the courage to admit their mistakes and clear the name of Tai Ji Men. By solving the Tai Ji Men case, the tax system and bureaucracy in Taiwan would be improved so that democracy, rule of law, and human rights can be truly implemented, and people can live and work in peace and happiness. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you very much, Robin Liang, and I must apologize because I was told that you were on duty, and I thought my consequence was that you would not be online, but you were physically online, and we are very pleased about it. So thank you as well for telling us how, thanks to the teachings of Dr. Hong, your conscience guided you on the road to saving lives in natural disasters, and how you got confidence in yourself to be able to speak in public and perform in public opera areas. We are now going to listen to Tai Ji Men dizi, Howard Kwan, a freshman from Taiwan. Mr. Howard Kwan loves music, a feeling that was transmitted to him by his mother, who was a music teacher. He will tell you about his obsession for music and other things.
Hey, thank you, Willie. Hello, everyone. I'm Howard, and I'm glad to be here to share my opinions. And first, I want to introduce myself. My mom was a music teacher when I was a child, and one day I was obsessed with music because it looked interesting when my mom taught her students. So I joined the music talented class when I was 9. Teachers and parents all say that it's important to combine work with hobbies in order to make working joyful and enduring. That's why I believed I would engage in jobs related to music. However, when I approached senior high, I started to consider whether this decision was right or wrong, for it would be difficult to support me in the future in Taiwan. In the music industry, there are typically 3 options: teachers, performers, and recording engineers. If I become a teacher, I'll face the problem of low birth rate, and any children often choose to give up because of the frustration of practice. As a result, the income is not stable at all. If I become a performer, the process will be similar to that of many celebrities, but these are less opportunities in the Taiwan music industry. After years of continuous efforts and further education, it is possible to have a stable income until one day when I'm fortunate enough to win a well-known award or an opportunity to become famous. But before that, my income is close to 0, and I'm unable to subsist. If I become a recording engineer, learning the operation of software and hardware equipment, and even spending a large amount of money on equipment will be necessary. Many people on the internet reveal how to be recording engineers, according to a survey on the internet. The average weekly working hours for recording or music production surpassed 46 hours. And 57% of workers have to wait until afternoon or even night time to begin work. And only 1% of the workers have a regular weekend and 2 days off, while the starting salary is only about 30,000 NT. No matter which path I take, it's very bumpy and difficult. So I choose to give up the path of music at that time and study in a regular high school. Now, I also choose to study in information science, which is close to the future development. And in order to have a for salary to support myself and my parents after getting into the society. Of course, I still love music now. I play the piano and listen to music when I have free time, but my favorite music is unlikely to be an option for my future job. Not only music industry just mentioned, but also many other industries in Taiwan are facing the same challenges. What causes the low-wage situation in Taiwan today is the corruption of Taiwan's current tax system. The Tai Ji Men case is the clearest example of this corruption. Many domestic, foreign experts and scholars have spoken out about the Tai Ji Men case or criticized Taiwan's bad tax environment as a result of it. But our government appears indifferent and uninterested in improving the tax system. We can see state bullying in them. The government has lost its job of protecting the people in the tax system and doesn't care about the people's suffering, which has an indirect impact on people's basic life. Here's an illustration. There were TSMC American interns in Taiwan who complained about the length of work, which were at least 10 hours a day. In fact, may even be as much as 12 hours. Here's another example. After the modification of the 2002 teacher training law, the monthly allowance of 8,000 NT, which was less than 100,000 NT per year, was repealed. As a result, during the internship period, they worked for 8 hours and had to prepare for classes when they returned home because there were no time for additional work. Many interns were unable to support themselves for their original grant, their only source of income, exacerbating the problem of youth poverty. And this situation also extremely affects our generation. We discuss we would like to apply double major or not when we just entering university. Although it's not able to do it when we were just a freshman. But I selected a math course and some students selected information science course together. It's just like that. Only acquire one skill is not enough because we are worried about our salary in the future. We can get more opportunities and a salary by being a slashy. And furthermore, more youth in Taiwan stated on the internet that low-paid laborers are viewed by the capital as being similar to washing chopsticks. The capital will lower pay when they lose money, and they will be stuffed into their pockets when they make a large profit. Even young men with nearly 1 million student loans, under the influence of the epidemic, decides to drop out of school, works in a restaurant during the day until 10 p.m., continues to ride a bicycle to send out after work, and finally returns to the hostel room shared with 11 people, a home on a 300 centimeter high iron frame, simply because he cannot afford to pay a 2-month deposit. This is one of the most heartbreaking situations involving Taiwanese youth. How do we live in such a situation in Taiwan? And this year, Taiwan's unemployment rate reached 3.95%, a new high in the past 7 years, owing to the corruption of the tax system. How many businesses and companies have closed down or moved out of a country? And here's an example. One day, the Tax Bureau said that a company received an invoice issued by a fictitious company 5 years ago. The company presented facts such as purchase invoice, transactions, payment vouchers, and shipments. However, the Tax Bureau still thought that it was a fictitious company and said that if the company interacted with it, it will be fine. They were asked to write a letter of commitment, admit the mistakes, and pay a one-time fine. If they refuse to admit the mistake, it will be fined 5 times. The company in question, since it was the government that issued license and sold invoices to this company, how did the government punish the people? In the end, the Tax Bureau staff argued that they could not close the case, and the boss was forced to pay more than $1 million, and he decided that he didn't want to live in such fear, so he closed the business. I would like to ask the Taiwan government, how can youths not want to go abroad to develop due to the phenomenon of corporate closure and enterprise departure caused by the chaos of the tax system? The main goal of the United Nations World Day of Social Justice is to eradicate poverty, achieve full employment, and enjoy social welfare and social justice. So I urge Taiwan's government to address the current situation so that talents and businesses will not flow out, so that our young people would want to stay in Taiwan and give us a brighter future. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Howard Kwan, for your testimony. And as we could hear, is not only obsessed by music, but is also obsessed by the injustice sown around by the National Tax Bureau and by social injustice in general. And I hope the Taiwanese authorities will hear his call for justice and for reducing poverty in the country. Now our next speaker will be Ho Hai Chi. She became a dizi of Tai Ji Men at the age of 5 already, and she will tell us how she experienced the dramatic events of 1996 at the age of 7. The floor is yours, Mrs. Ho Hai Chi.
Thank you, Willie. Hello, everyone. I'm Ai Chi. When I was 5 years old, I followed my parents and became a dizi of Tai Ji Men. I weak and sickly as a child, and were often absent in school due to sickness. But after I joined, I started living a different life. I began to learn Qigong, listen to the teachings of my shifu, learn to improve myself, and learn how to be a good person with unlimited positive energy in my limited life. In the East, we often talk about the concept of Zen. And in Tai Ji Men, I realized that Zen of life is an everyday practice to be better than who I was yesterday and to do what I can to help others. This is the belief of the people of Tai Ji Men. On December 19, 1996, I was 7 years old. I watched the news of my shifu getting arrested on TV. Shifu faced unfriendly reporters and flashing lights with kindness, while the men in black holding shifu were fierce. Knowing that there were prosecutors and police officers made me very scared, because I always thought that the police and the government were righteous and protective of the people. From that day to the next 26 years, I experienced this unjust case. At the time of the innocent, Prosecutor Ho Kwan took my shifu Shimu and some brothers and sisters into custody illegally without any evidence or detailed investigation. He looked them up, but could not find any criminal evidence. He even charged them under the name of racing glibness in his indictment. Is an name shameful for a judicial officer to include such a strange and unpredictable spirit in his indictment? Moreover, it is his imagination. He said he saw the shadow in shifu's eyes. He made up stories, arrested people, and filed lawsuits. Even people with no legal knowledge will find this prosecutor ridiculous. At that time, Tai Ji Men was discredited by more than 400 media reports. My brothers and sisters were tormented daily by unfounded allegations. Some brothers and sisters insisted on staying in the academy to answer the phone, trying to tell people the truth instead of what the media reported. But they were caught by strangers who cursed and even threatened them personal safety. Some brothers and sisters were misunderstood by their families and were locked out of their homes. I was too young to know much about it, except that I could no longer walk down the street in my Tai Ji Men attire or 练功服 because my mother thought it was dangerous. I wrote in my school weekly diary, "We must let everyone know that we are innocent." But I was only 7, and I didn't know how to prove I haven't done anything illegal. On July 13, 2007, the criminal court ruled in the third trial that Tai Ji Men was not guilty and did not owe taxes. Tai Ji Men then received compensation from the state for wrongful imprisonment, and they cleared our name. The illegal tax bill, which was led by Hou Kuan-ren, who directed the tax officer to commit forgery, should have been revoked a long time ago. Not only did the NTB fail to do so, the country's administrative relief system also failed. On August 21st, 2020, the executive office illegally action of the Tai Ji Men secret land and took the land back into state ownership. I don't understand, as the court has already ruled Tai Ji Men owns no taxes. Since the tax bill has been proven to be fraudulent, on what basis did the executive office action of the land? If you owe money, you can ask for repayment. If you don't owe money, why can you take away other people's land? This is such a simple question, but so far, no official have come forward to answer us. In 2002, the control yuan investigated the case and found Hou Kuan-ren guilty of 9 major violations of the law. Not only was he not punished, he is still a senior official. In 2009, the control yuan also found the NTB guilty of 7 major violations of the law, but no one from the NTB has been punished or has come forward to take responsibility. Why can the Taiwanese government turn a blind eye to this and continue to let these evil officials who did something wrong to stay in power? Is the control yuan not functioning? Or is it because the Ministry of Justice is covering them up? Is it because the NTB has overridden the entire country, or it is because the 5 yuan of government allow the executive power to control everything? I stand up today not only because I am a Tai Ji Men dizi, but also because I have seen how Taiwan has been kidnapped by rogue bureaucrats for the past 26 years. How they has hurt its people and how they has spent resources against its own people when they should be used to build the country and protect its people. The only people who benefit from the country's internal depression are the rogue bureaucrats. I don't want to see Taiwan like this. I was one of the victims in the Tai Ji Men case when I was 7. For a long time, I could not say what I really felt and the love and peace we want to promote. I hid my love for the world in my heart, like a tripped bird, unable to fly out of the cage of confusion and fear. However, even though my shifu suffered a lot, he told us to love the world, to be brave, and to insist on doing the right thing, because distinguishing between right and wrong, truth and falsehood, is an important lesson for a person of 修行人. So I decided to become a defender instead of just a victim. I spend my weekends as a volunteer, standing on the street and telling people the truth, telling them that the legal tax issue has harmed our country and every one of us. To my surprise, I received a lot of feedback from people who were also suffering from the fake tax bills, including having their property frozen and their medical bills taken away. Before we spoke up, they didn't have the strength to ask for help. So the Tai Ji Men case is not an independent case. On the contrary, it is a landmark case that combines various cases of human rights violations by government. The amount of money and time we have spent in the past 26 years is no less than spent out settling directly with the NTB. But if we had counterbiased, someone else will have been hurt the same way. Ambassador at large in Taiwan, Mr. Buxing Dali, have encouraged Tai Ji Men to continue to fight because the course has already ruled. The NTB must follow. Otherwise, it is to cross the bottom line of human rights. He said, don't give up. as many friends and countries with religious freedom will stand beside you. In order to protect justice and to prevent the sacrifice of the future of Taiwan, corrupt officials, we reveal our pen in hopes that more people will see the truth. So please work with us for justice, for human rights, and for love. Thank you.
Thank you, Haishi, for sharing with us the traumatic experience of watching on the TV your shifu arrested as a criminal when you were only a child. And you also said that after that, there were hundreds of media reports. Of course, they were all negative. And they tarnished the image and the reputation of Dr. Hong and the Tai Ji Men movement. We will now move forward with our next speaker, Liu Qifeng, who is a software engineer.
Thank you, Willie. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve. It's my pleasure to speak at today's forum. And first and foremost, I would like to thank all of you for your assistance to us and Taiwan. Taiwan is a young democracy country. There's a lot of uncertainty in Taiwan's current state of democracy, but there's also hope and a future. These hopes, however, are about to dash due to the hijacking of our government by a few unscrupulous bureaucrats. Taiwanese democracy and respecting the rule of law are being trampled on by corrupt bureaucrats before they have a chance to flourish. Without democracy and upholding the rule of law, there can be no social justice. Taiwan was recently ranked the 8th in the Democracy Index, the highest ranking in Asia, but not everything that glitters is gold. Taiwan is confronted with a difficult task. According to statistical data of Administrative Enforcement Agency of the Ministry of Justice, there were only 1.9 million new tax and fee enforcement cases in 2001, per 14.31 million cases in 2020, a 7.5-fold increase over the previous 20 years. The number of people whose families have been shuttered as a result of the tax and fee enforcement. For example, the government auctioned Mr. Chen Qingshui's house for the equivalent of 78,926 euros for a fine of merely 568 euros, which is overtaxed 138 times. Mr. Chen clearly has home appliances worth more than 568 euros that could be auctioned, but the government insisted on auctioning their house. This incident was eventually blown the whistle on for not following the legal procedures to process the auction, as well as the shady forging Mr. Chen's mother's signature on receiving the certified mail of the house auction notice, and the levy was finally withdrawn. Despite such shocking misconduct, no corrupt official has yet been sanctioned. Taiwan does not appear to be the 8th most democratic country in the world. Many Taiwanese have suffered unspeakable pain silently as a result of some bureaucratic misconduct and the government's inactivity. I have been a Tai Ji Men dizi for 26 years, and I have been suffered with this case for the same amount of time. We, like many of my brothers and sisters, have been subjected to a great deal of unspoken social pressure. When the case happened, some of my brothers and sisters were bullied at school. Some were scolded by strangers on the road, and some were banned from going to academy because of the misunderstanding by their families. Because of this fabricated case, many brothers and sisters lost contact with us. These are irreparable pains for all of us. When I was a kid, my mother could only sneak me to the academy because she was afraid that other family members would find us going to the academy. We were clearly innocent, but we were forced to hide. I felt hurt badly. My shifu, Dr. Hong, instilled in us a love for our country, family, and people since we were young. Prosecutor Ho Kuan-ren, on the other hand, fabricated a false case against Tai Ji Men by using false evidence and false witnesses. He spread false rumors in major media on the second day of the incident, and even included the shocking story of raising goblins in his indictment, making it the first case in judicial history in which a prosecutor accused a person of raising goblins. Even Shi Yuesen, who gave the false testimony at the time, admitted it before his death that Ho Kuan-ren had coerced him to give false testimony. But his fabricated case still went on for more than a quarter century. Even though the criminal court ruled in the final verdict that Tai Ji Men was not guilty and didn't owe taxes, the government continued to play the ball of responsibility game and eventually seized Tai Ji Men's sacred land. We filed petitions to the governments and also appealed to the public. I was once spotted by a stranger last year when we were telling people the truth on the street. She angrily complained that we were too loud. She said we should protest to the government instead of people on the street. I told her, we have been protesting to government for 25 years. We have been petitioning the chief of the village, city council members, county and city mayors, the executive yuan, the legislative yuan, the judicial yuan, the control yuan, the examining yuan, and the president. But the fabricated case still not been resolved yet. We have no choice but to appeal to the public. After hearing that, she was speechless and showed her support to us. This fabricated case causes unbearable pain to us. The innocent suffer all the pain, which is an injustice to Taiwanese society, a disgrace to government officials, and a stain on Taiwanese democracy. However, we have not given up. Despite the burden we have carried, Dr. Hong, my shifu, had led us to travel to 101 countries in the last 26 years to continue promoting love and peace. I am fortunate to travel with Dr. Hong and exposed to a variety of cultures very different from my own. I was astounded to discover that despite our difference in language and cultures, we share the same core values of love, peace, and conscience. Our minds think alike, but we are all influenced by external factors. And I believe that the tax bonus, performance pressure, and dark power are also confusing those officials. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And money talks, as the saying goes. It is even more so in Taiwan, where there is a serious imbalance among administrative, judicial, and legislative powers. More than 300 legislators have signed a petition, interrogated, and held public hearings. But the National Tax Bureau has refused to revoke illegal tax bill, and the Administrative Enforcement Agency has also refused to revoke the illegal levy. Human rights include the right to freedom, and religious freedom is one of the rights that no one can take away from their quest for spirituality. In Taiwan, however, the government is abusing the state power to suppress people's religious freedom. The government used violence to prosecute Mount Zion followers during the martial law period. And after the martial law was lifted, the government is using legal and tax violence to persecute Tai Ji Men. Yes, we are the young democracy country, but how much time do we have left to make mistakes over and over again? Taiwan democracy and respecting the rule of law are on the verge of collapsing. The vindication of the fabricated Tai Ji Men case may be enough to stop the crappings. As former legislators Xu Tiancai said, the Tai Ji Men case is the first test point of the Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen's government execution of transitional justice. The Tsai Ing-wen administration is in its 6th year. I demand that administration immediately vindicate the fabricated Tai Ji Men case, return the sacred land to Tai Ji Men, and complete the first test point of the Tsai Ing-wen administration's implement of transitional justice, as well as restore social justice in Taiwan, which is what all Taiwanese hope for. Thank you all very much.
Sorry, I believe Willy Fautrey is muted, so we cannot hear him. Willy, you should unmute yourself.
Yes, sorry, I didn't notice. Yes, so I will then repeat my comment. Is that so? I thank you, Liu Qifeng, for denouncing the fabrication of cases by the National Tax Bureau in Taiwan, and with the auctioning of Mr. Cheng King-shu's house for a fine of 568 euros, you have reminded us that many other ordinary Taiwanese are victims of the tax bureau, and the tax staff can be dictatorial and inhuman in total impunity in Taiwan. And again, in this case, justice was denied. We now have a last speaker, Shelley Tu, Tai Ji Men dizi. When she was working in Singapore, she witnessed an event that shocked her and left her speechless. And she started to compare Taiwan with Singapore. More from Shelley Tu.
大家好，我是一名7年级生。
Hello, I'm a Gen Yer, also known as the strawberry generation in Taiwan, because we bruise easily like strawberries. We witnessed many major events during our lifetime. As high schoolers, we experienced the SARS outbreak. As college students, we experienced the devaluation of higher education. Then the financial crisis occurred when we were ready to join the workforce, not to mention wage freeze and skyrocketing housing prices. Regardless of what happened, I still believe in Taiwan and that living a decent life is still possible if one is willing to work hard. I am more convinced now than ever that only with freedom of speech and the right to monitor the government could we have a better future. When I was working in Singapore a few years ago, a teenager was arrested by the Singapore government for criticizing the government on social media. It was a shock to me because no one in Taiwan would be punished for publicly criticizing the government. When I asked my local friends whether they felt a lack of freedom in their country, my friend answered, "Our government provides education, jobs, housing, good law and order, and strict law enforcement to ensure social fairness and justice. What about your government in Taiwan? Does Taiwan's democracy provide you with these guarantees?" At that moment, I was speechless. The equality and justice we learned from textbooks seemed unreal. In reality, it felt like a stupid and naive ideal. The prosecutor who broke the law over 20 years ago was investigated by the Control Yuan and 8 serious offenses were identified. None of the government agencies took this matter seriously. Instead, the prosecutor in question was promoted to Deputy Director of Agency Against Corruption at the Ministry of Justice. Anyone who violated the law should face punishment, which is enforced by the judicial system. However, in Taiwan, officials are often involved in cover-ups to protect each other. In the workplace, we all learn to stand up for ourselves and rebuff the unreasonable demands of our supervisors. Have we been manipulated to accept such contemptible politics as normal? Our constitution is based on the 3 principles of the people. One of the principles is sometimes translated as the people's welfare/livelihood or socialism. One of the ways to equitably distribute wealth is through taxation. However, Taiwan has been moving towards wealth reduction for over 10 years, and taxation is the cause of some people's suffering. In the past 10 years, due to the European debt crisis in 2012 and 2013, and COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, which resulted in a budget deficit, the rest of the years were all budget surplus and reached an all-time high of 4,000 billion new Taiwan dollars in 2021. Then why is the government's annual budget still in the red, with billions in debt obligations? Wasteful spending includes spending 2,610 billion new Taiwan dollars on the development of more than 500 buildings which now stand vacant, 206 billion new Taiwan dollars loss in the Qingfu fraud case, and 980 billion new Taiwan dollars on loans extended to Chinese companies, without collateral by government-owned banks. Furthermore, Mega Bank was fined a total of 66 billion new Taiwan dollars for money laundering. Each and every Taiwanese shared the burden of paying for those bad debts with their hard-earned money. It also brought shame to all Taiwanese. In addition, the former finance minister, Chang Shing-Ford's hasty and ill-considered decision to levy tax on stock transfer had caused the market value of the stocks to erase 2.2 trillion new Taiwan dollars in value in just 5 months, a shortfall of 55 billion new Taiwan dollars on securities trading tax, and the net outflow of 45.3 billion new Taiwan dollars in foreign capital. Both the government and the opposition party criticized this as an economic policy disaster. The Control Yuan rectified the policy and condemned the decision as the wrong policy which had a more terrible consequence than corruption. However, no officials from the Ministry of Finance were held accountable for it, and Chang Shing-Ford was unapologetic. He argued that it was still at the initial stage of the economic improvement, and results would be apparent soon. He deemed it reasonable to use the people's hard-earned money to fill in the budget gaps. When questioned about the budget gaps by the legislators, Chang's successor Su Yuche's solution was to collect more taxes from the people to fill in the gap. Such officials are not held responsible and will always rely on charging more taxes to finance these gaps. Even with economic growth and how much harder the people work, the taxes they pay will never be enough to fill up this money pit. It is depressing to have no money, house, or car, and a hopeless feeling about the future makes one feel defeated. But hope is up to us to hold on, and our tolerance of wrongdoings will not lead to progress. When we shop online, we compare prices just to save a few dollars. In taxes, we are paying hundreds of thousands or even millions, therefore it would be wise for us to spend more time understanding the tax system and understand our rights. Democracy stemmed from the people's distrust in the government. With freedom of speech, we must voice our opinions and let us become the forces of progress in Taiwan. So if you encounter injustice, speak up bravely. If you are dissatisfied with the status quo, stand up and support reform.
Thank you very much for showing us. I say thank you to all the disease because it was the last one who shared with us her testimony. So thank you for showing us how love and peace, 2 fundamental values of Tai Ji Men, change your life and helped you overcome all sorts of problems or personal weaknesses and improve the quality of your life and also the lives of many other people. And as we are now at the end of this second session, I will give the floor to Marco Respinti for the conclusions.
Thank you very much, Willie. Thank you all. It is my true pleasure to be once again with you, bringing the sad case of Tai Ji Men to the attention of the world. And it is my honor to fulfill the task of drawing some conclusion, some first conclusion for today. Today is the World Day of Social Justice, established by the United Nations in 2009. Social justice is a key concept for human and a humane civilization, as well as a too frequently misunderstood or even positively twisted expression. Marie-Jeanne Manon Roland de la Platière, universally known simply as Madame Roland, was a French noblewoman. In 1793, during the Revolution, she was sent to the gallows by the terror rulers of the country, like so many aristocrats and clergymen and peasants and common people. Moments before her last moment, Madame Roland famously said, "Ô liberté, que de crimes ont commis en ton nom," meaning, "Oh freedom, what crimes are committed in your name." In the 200 years elapsed since that time, how many times all of us could have well said, "Ô justice sociale, que de crimes ont commis en ton nom," or "O social justice, what crimes are committed in your name," not only translating that phrase into English, but in all the languages of the world, whose number scholars calculate in more than 6,500. The social justice formula has been, in fact, often used by regimes which promised heaven on earth and really gave their citizens only a terrestrial hell. Social justice has been waved as a flag by ideologues and idiocrats who have then punished innocent people for crimes they never committed. But the concept of social justice is indeed pivotal. In fact, it combines justice with the social dimension of human being, making a sort of synology, as Aristotle would have said, out of the two. And the social dimension of the human being, as again Aristotle reminds us, points at one of the key aspects of human nature. In brief, the formula social justice, properly understood, and not led to tyrants, petty or big, says that there is no such a thing as a society conceived as the common house for men if there is no guarantee of justice. And on the other side, that justice can only find home within a humane society. Properly exploring the profoundness of these concepts could easily take as hours, maybe days. We don't have that time today. So instead of summarizing or mechanically repeating the brilliant remarks of the preceding scholars and the really touching testimonies of our friends in the Tai Ji Men community, I wish today to conclude this webinar by quoting words from one of the fathers of Western civilization, an admirable saint for the Catholic and Orthodox and Protestant Christians, a master philosopher and a great man, Saint Augustine of Hippo. One of his most famous and luminescent books is called De Civitate Dei, or The City of God. In the fourth of its 22 books, the fourth chapter is made of words like stones. I quote, "Justice being taken away, then what are kingdoms but great robberies? For what are robberies themselves but little kingdoms? The band itself is made up of men. It is ruled by the authority of the prince. It is knit together by the pact of the confederacy. The booty is divided by the law agreed on. If, by the admittance of abandoned men, this evil increases to such a degree that it holds places, fixes abodes, takes possessions of cities and subdues peoples, it assumes the more plainly the name of economy, because the reality is now manifestly conferred on it, not by the removal of covetousness, but by the addition of impunity. Indeed, that was an apt and true reply which was given to Alexander the Great by a pirate who had been seized. For when that king had asked the man what he meant by keeping hostile possession of the sea, he answered with bold pride, "What you mean by seizing the whole earth? But because I do it with a petty ship, I am called a robber, while you who does it with a great fleet are styled emperor." End of the quote of St. Augustine. Since unforgiven judgment resonates high today, maybe higher today than in the saints' own times, and especially in face of the 25 years incredible persecution of the Pacific, law-abiding Tai Ji Men movement. In fact, to paraphrase the great saint's words, if justice is taken away in Taiwan for Taiwanese law-abiding citizens who enjoy their religious freedom and spiritual well-being in the Tai Ji Men movement, what is the Taiwan democracy at the end of the day? If a petty pirate in the Taiwanese bureaucracy behaves like the Alexander the Great of Southeast Asia, how can Taiwan claim to be different in quality from the giant of the region, similarly treading upon religious liberty and human rights? If an arrogant bureaucrat is regarded as a servant of the public good only because he robs aboard of a larger ship than common thieves, what is really social justice? Do not please get me wrong. I am an admirer of Taiwan for historical, political, and cultural reasons, and I'm ready to say that all of us here today are as well. I do strongly believe that Taiwan itself has suffered and suffers great international injustice because one of its major neighbors is social injustice at its zenith turned the state and is quite able to influence the world powers. I do commend Taiwan and the Taiwanese people's struggle for liberty, democracy, and civility. I do think that Taipei is a happy oasis in a yellow sea of troubles, and I am honored to have been featured in a webinar holding the Legislative Yuan of the Republic of China on the danger posed by the People's Republic of China. I have visited that beautiful country as a loyal friend, and I want to visit it again as a convinced supporter. And it is precisely for this reason that, personally and professionally, I am bewildered seeing how democratic Taiwan treats the patriotic Taiwanese of Tai Ji Men. I said this time and again, and I want to repeat it on the World Day of Social Justice. I believe that the Taiwan's government misdeeds against Tai Ji Men or the wrongdoers within some of its branches are exceptions. I believe it is all a big mistake, a giant misinterpretation. I want to believe it. I want to believe. And I'm really, and I am deadly serious, as well as I want the Taiwanese democratic government to be deadly serious with me, granting me that I am right in my presumption, so that Tai Ji Men may find peace and social justice at last. Happy New Lunar Year of the Tiger to the government of Taiwan. Happy New Year to Prosecutor Ho Wan-han, and Happy New Year to all of his victims, the Tai Ji Men, Shifu, and Dizi. And may the new year bring them peace soon. I am concluding this webinar now with announcing, thanking, of course, all of you for participating, for spreading truth, for underlining important legal, cultural, even political, and also religious dimensions of this staggering case. And I, especially as usual, I'm fond of this, thank the dizi testimonials for what they have suffered and they have shared today. Our webinar is drawing to its final steps, and it is my pleasure to salute and thank all of you, asking you to stay with us for a few minutes more, because we have two very nice and important concluding videos. Thank you.
The ancient Roman tax collector was discovered by conscience.
There was a taxation system in place during the Roman era. The Roman government gave certain social status to the tax collectors in order to have a smooth tax collection, and the status of tax collector was very important. But, in the end, the tax collector's duty was similar to contracting out a project, and the person who contracted it would profit from the opportunity. So the tax collector would frequently collect more money than the Roman government required. As a result, the Jewish court refused to allow the tax collector to testify because he was a deceiver, a corrupter, and a dishonest person, according to the court. According to the Bible, when Jesus approached the village of Jericho, the residents flocked to see him and crowded the village's entrance. At that time, the chief tax collector of Jericho, whose name was Zacchaeus, wanted to see what kind of man Jesus was. But because there were many people, and Zacchaeus was too short to see, he climbed up a mulberry tree to see what Jesus looked like. When Jesus passed by, he lifted up his head and looked at Zacchaeus and said,
"Zacchaeus, come down. Today I will stay in your house."
When Zacchaeus heard this, he came down hastily and received Jesus with joy and gladness.
There was a lot of talk among the people at this time, because Zacchaeus was unpopular among the peasants, since he had levied a lot of taxes on them and had embezzled a lot of money. Everyone wondered, why did Jesus go to the house of a sinner, and to live in his house?
On the next day, Zacchaeus came out and stood and said to Jesus and the villagers, "Lord, I give half of everything to the poor, and if I defraud anyone, I will pay him back 4 times over." This isn't just a religious story, it's also a description of the tax collector's path of discovering conscience. Today, history is repeating itself in terms of illicit tax evasion to profit oneself. We hope that tax officials wake up soon, so Taiwan can leave a legacy of conscience inspiration as well.
Humans living on land do not respect the nature and destroy the environment. Thus, they are frequently subject to natural disasters, which is the backlash of the earth. Humans have recently been struck by viral pandemics, and they are scared to go out because they are terrified of becoming infected. So, they no longer annoy us.
Humans don't just destroy nature, they also hurt other humans. For example, Tai Ji Men, a highly regarded spiritual organization, has been persecuted by the government for 25 years.
Yes, it's all terrible.
I thought humans only intended to consume us, but I didn't expect them to abandon their own species.
Yeah, looks like humans can spray ink better than I do. I spray ink to flee, but humans spray ink to smear others. A prosecutor condemned Tai Ji Men 25 years ago for fraud and detained members without evidence. He went as far as accusing Tai Ji Men for raising goblins only because he found a sword made with peach wood. The true savings under Tai Ji Men totaled $22,000, yet the prosecutor said Tai Ji Men earned $110 million and spread fake news to shame Tai Ji Men. My heart goes out to Tai Ji Men dizi. They must have suffered from a lot of prejudice. I don't know how they could live with it.
Humans are hateful. They always use my name to imply that people are deaf and blind. Why me?
But you are a lobster.
The pronunciation happens to be the same in Chinese. Only humans are the deaf and blind. They can't hear or see the facts, but rely on their own imagination to solve the case. Now tell me, aren't humans deaf and blind? They're completely talking nonsense.
Absolutely.
Oh gosh.
There's another judge who is also deaf and blind. He said that he was too old to read the evidence in favor of Tai Ji Men. How disgusting! Seeing how humans perform, I really want to change my name and avoid being referred to as deaf and blind.
My situation is even worse than yours. People who bully others are said to walk like crabs. But this is the way I walk. How can I be a bully? Take a look at the Tai Ji Men case. It is fake from start to finish. The tax officer issued a phony tax bill based on the indictment. Tai Ji Men is not guilty of fraud, tax evasion, or violating the Tax Collection Act, according to the Supreme Court's Criminal Division. The accusation made in the representative indictment was incorrect. The tax measure should be repealed. Finally, the land of Tai Ji Men was illegally forcibly auctioned off, and when no bids were received, it was illegally nationalized. The authorities auctioned off and bought the land at the same time. What a rampant behavior! Come on, it's fine if you human beings are rampant, but don't say that you are like crabs rampant in the future, please.
I also heard that the government officials on the island received 7,401 declarations, claiming that the red envelopes given to shifu were gifts, yet the officials only counted half the number. They even promised to settle the tax dispute within 2 months, but they never did. It looks like they're corrupted inside out. I don't want to curse, but humans.
But we should stay positive. Humans do show remorse. Shi Ruishen, the tax officer who forged evidence, did confess his wrongdoing before he died. Humans will learn from their mistakes when their conscience is called upon. Many religious and spiritual organizations are working hard to inspire people to reflect and elevate. They all aim to transform the world. Indeed, even though Tai Ji Men members have been persecuted for so long, their shifu still led his dizi to promote love and peace in 101 countries. I hope that people around the world will awaken to their conscience. I hope that there will be no war. I hope that humans will respect nature. If humans will awaken to their conscience, Tai Ji Men case will be resolved and the world will be a better place. We do hope so.
The sun is going down. I'm going to dive deeper to the bottom of the sea.
Bye.
Catch you later.
Bye for now.